Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Elder Scrolls Lore, and before we begin, I'd like to thank Aries for allowing me to use his music, as well as to make a shout out to the Discord chat. Feel free to join. There's a link in the description below, as well as in the channel header. Now, I apologize if my voice is a bit off or scratchy. I am still sick. Of course, you know, my first week break, I got sick, and then my first week back from my break, I am now sick again. Makes sense, right? So start my relaxation with being sick and start my grind being sick again. So with that being said, though, today we're going to be talking about a detail I found in doing my research for the last video. And if you recall, in my last video I did the levels of authority that each emperor had over the empire, from the Septims to the Meade. And the Medes, I should say. Now, this is a theory, obviously, so this is my opinion, my ideas, if you can have a totally different perspective on it, but it's just a little thing that I thought was obviously big enough for me to make a video about. And so the first part of it will definitely be fact and lore, but the second part of it could be is going to be more speculation and theory, if anything else. So with that, let's begin. So, as you recall, in my last video I did the levels of authority for each Septim ruler and Meade ruler. Now, that being said, there was a little detail I picked up, as I said earlier at the beginning of the video. So, right around where Uriel Septim IV was ruling, he struggled with authority, and the Elder Council held a majority of the power because they were some of the wealthiest men and women of the entire realm that were in the Elder Council. And now wealth obviously buys a lot of power, and so having this authority, Uriel Septim IV's son Andorok was denied the throne to the empire, and so basically this started a civil war between Andorok Septim and Sepphoris II, or Sepphoris the Septim II. There, now Sepphoris is pretty much a weak ruler at this point. Sepphoris would end up basically losing this civil war and barely managed to defeat the Comoran usurper, and he had virtually no part in the defeat of the Comoran usurper at all. Now, that being said, he's more of a figurehead in this standpoint, where the Elder Council held a majority of the power and the decisions that were being made, so that the ability, basically what I'm trying to say here is he had no strength whatsoever. But Andorok Septim did. Andorok Septim managed to fight this war into a stalemate, where eventually he is given the kingdom of Shornhelm, where his father actually ruled, or was born. So Galavir Lyriat and Catrius Septim had a son that would end up being Uriel Septim IV. Uriel Septim IV would have a son named Andorok. Now, because of the fact that Uriel Septim IV was not directly related to the Septim bloodline, he is kind of ostracized from the Empire, and it was hard for him to rule, because he ruled for a good amount of time, but it's hard for him to rule when he had a lot of enemies in the Elder Council. Now, that is why they denied his son Andorok the throne in the first place, and they favored his cousin Sepphoris II because it was more closely related to the Septim bloodline. However, as we know, that this bloodline, where Sepphoris II and his descendants, would eventually be wiped out. Now, that leaves Andorok still. Andorok was given the kingdom of Shornhelm, where his father was born. Now, this kingdom he is now the king of, in this sense. His descendants rule to this day. Now, he changed, his descendants would now be known as the Lyriat family rather than the Septims, but that doesn't make him any less Septim than a couple of the other emperors that ruled. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, well, his birth wasn't of a Septim. He wasn't directly related, because Catrius Septim was married to Pelagius the Mad, and Pelagius the Mad was the Septim in this situation, and Catria was just his wife that was a Dunmer. Now, Catria had a kid with Uriel Lyriat, who is also not a Septim. So people are going to say, well, obviously this makes sense that he is not a Septim, but he still had that last name. He was adopted into that family. Catria was still an empress of the empire, so she was in this family. She was. It's the same when it goes to Galavir Lyriat. he becomes a septim by marriage now. So that being said, legally, Andorok's septim would be a septim. Now, or Andorok Lyriat, I should say, was going to be technically a septim now. Now, legally, in terms of legal terms, this all makes sense. However, there are going to be those out there, especially members of the Elder Council, that believe that he didn't have any right to rule because of the fact that his parents were not anywhere near, didn't have any relations to Tiber Septim. That being said, eventually we move on to the Meade Dynasty now, and the Meade Dynasty has a fairly controversial rule and terms. Now, the Medes, Titus Meade the first would end up ruling for a while, and he gained the throne for his family and managed to defeat all his rivals. And then there was a Trebus Meade, maybe a couple other, or maybe one other ruler at this time, and they had some moderate times. But under this time here, we see the empire fracture. So Morrowind is basically gone at this point. Blackmarsh succeeds under the Potentate around year 15 of the Fourth Era, and Alinor and Valenwood and Ellisware all become part of the Third Aldmeri Dominion. So at this point we see a pretty fractured empire, and then under Titus Meade II we have the Great War, which at the end you see Hammerfell being kicked out of the empire as well. So really this is where the theory comes in. So obviously Elder Scrolls 6 is coming up, and the big idea is that it's going to be in either High Rock or Hammerfell. And honestly, with this, it actually a little bit makes sense now. When I first saw this, I kind of connected the dots in a little bit. So Andorok Septim, or Andorok Lyriat, his family still rules in Shornhelm. Now that the Meade Dynasty is here, there may be members of the Elder Council that start to favor this rule over another. And some might be wondering, well, how is that possible? Because the Meads now have control. However, the Dark Brotherhood questline in Skyrim, you kill Titus Meade II. Why would someone want Titus Meade II dead if they didn't know this? So basically, once you kill Titus Meade II, that leaves a power vacuum, and the Elder Council could cause for a switch in rulership in terms of dynasties, and the Lyriat family is the closest ties to the Septims at this point. So you have Andorok's descendants still living in Shornhelm. What if this switch was to bring, in a way, the Septims back into power? Because if their family is still alive, and as of the Fourth Era they are, then it makes a lot of sense that the Elder Council would want Titus Meade II dead. And once Titus Meade II's gone, we don't know if his sons, it's assumed he is an older man, it's assumed that he has at least a few sons out there, it's possible, but it's also possible to see the Elder Council get rid of them and vote in favor of Andorok's descendants. We don't know who they are, but at this point it can be well more than assumed that the Elder Council could switch in terms of the same way they did to Andorok Septim and Sephirus II. So basically, instead of voting for Titus Meade's the second son, you have the Elder Council voting in favor of Andorok's descendants. Now, obviously, this is a very far-fetched theory, but it would make a little bit of sense of why the next game might be in Hammerfell or High Rock. I believe it's going to be both regions in this sense, but it would make a lot of sense at this point if it was there, because you could see the rise of Shornhelm. What if the Third Empire does collapse, but the Elder Council is now embracing a new leadership in Andorok's descendants? Because in a way, Andorok is still a septim. So if he is still a septim, then his descendants are still a septim. It only makes sense. It makes sense in terms of a legal standpoint. Now, obviously, this is just a theory, but it's just something that I noticed that is a little detail that I thought was worthwhile noting. And I don't know what you guys think. Do you guys agree or disagree? Do you think that the septims are technically still around, or do you think that this is kind of just a bunch of BS? I don't really care if you agree or disagree at this point, but I just want to have a nice discussion in the comments below. It's just something I noticed and thought was worth noting, and honestly, it's it's a pretty cool theory to think that maybe the next Elder Scrolls game might include you seeing the Septims come back to power, or even a new dynasty. So it's just a few things I noted. Well, you know, there's the reason we all don't know why that Titus Meade II wound up being killed. We don't know that yet. We hope to know in the next Elder Scrolls game. So maybe this is an answer, because during the assassination questline, it is stated that, you know, it's to bring a change to the Empire, much needed change, and that much needed change could be in terms of a new Septim Emperor. And now, obviously, we don't know if this is true. Like I said, this is more of the speculation part of it, but it's something nevertheless very interesting to me, at least. I love learning about this kind of stuff. So again, what do you guys think? I hope you guys enjoyed. Please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And as always, please like and subscribe. Peace.